The fire alarm tore through the Copley Grand Hotel at 11:40 on a Thursday night. Ava Reed had just left the lobby after a quick panel on emergency triage protocols when the strobe lights began flashing. Guests poured toward the exits, some in bathrobes, others barefoot, all shoving past one another with the kind of panic that comes when smoke starts curling under door frames. She followed the crowd toward the emergency stairwell, but stopped short when she caught the acrid smell rising from the third-floor corridor. Smoke, thin but spreading. Her ER instincts kicked in before her brain finished processing. She pushed against the tide, scanning for stragglers. That's when she saw him, a man in a charcoal suit, mid-30s maybe, frozen at the end of the hallway near the stairwell door. His hand gripped the wall. His breathing was fast, shallow, textbook hyperventilation. His eyes had that glassy, distant look she'd seen 100 times in trauma bays. "Sir." Ava moved quickly, her voice firm but calm. "Look at me." He didn't respond. His knuckles were white against the wallpaper. She stepped directly into his line of sight and placed her hands on his shoulders. "Hey, I need you to breathe with me. In through your nose. Count to 4. His gaze snapped to hers. Dark eyes, sharp even through the panic. He tried to speak but couldn't. "Don't talk. Just breathe. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out." She demonstrated, slow and exaggerated. He followed, shaky at first, then steadier. The smoke thickened around them. Somewhere below, glass shattered. "Good," she said. "Again. Stay with me." 3 breaths later, his shoulders dropped. He nodded, still locked on her face like she was the only solid thing in the world. "We're moving now," Ava said. "Stay close." She guided him down the stairwell, one hand on his elbow. They moved with the last wave of evacuees, bodies pressed together in the narrow space. She kept talking, low, steady, about nothing. The weather, the ridiculous carpeting in the hallway, anything to keep him grounded. When they hit the lobby, the night air rushed in through the open doors. He stopped on the threshold, sucking in oxygen like he'd been underwater. "You good?" Ava asked, checking his pupils one last time out of habit. He nodded, then finally spoke. His voice was rough. Thank you. I don't know what." Panic response, she said simply. "Happens. You're okay now." Before he could answer, 2 men in dark suits materialized at his side. One touched his arm with the kind of deference that didn't match the chaos. The other spoke into a phone, clipped and urgent. "Mr. Hawthorne, the car's here. We need to move." Ava blinked. Hawthorne, the name registered faintly. Some tech fund, always in the business section. She took a step back, suddenly aware she was still holding his sleeve. "I'm fine," he told the men, but his eyes stayed on Ava. "I need to—" "Sir, protocol." The taller one was already steering him toward a black SUV idling at the curb. A woman in a sleek gray coat appeared next, her expression sharp and assessing. She looked at Ava the way a lawyer looks at a liability. "You helped him?" Not a question. A confirmation. Just did what anyone would. The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. She pulled a slim folder from her bag and held it out. "Victoria Crane. I handle communications for Mr. Hawthorne. Given the circumstances, the alarm, the media presence, we'd appreciate your discretion. This is standard. A non-disclosure agreement. It protects everyone involved." Ava stared at the folder. "I'm a nurse. I don't talk about patients." "Even better." Victoria's tone was warm now, almost friendly. "Then this is just a formality. Sign here, and we'll make sure there are no complications. For you or your employer." The last part landed like a quiet threat. Ava's hospital had strict rules about press, about involvement in high-profile incidents. She thought of her shift schedule, her bills, the promotion review coming up. Her hand shook slightly as she signed. Victoria took the folder back with a crisp nod. "Thank you for your service tonight." Ava turned toward the street, her breath still unsteady. She glanced back once. Grant Hawthorne was in the SUV now, his face visible through the tinted window. He was staring at her. His lips moved. Just 2 words she could almost read. In the dim light. "Thank you." Then the car pulled away, and he disappeared into the Boston night. Ava stood on the sidewalk, smoke still hanging in the air, and realized she didn't even know his first name. 7 months later, Ava Reed learned that silence had a weight to it. It pressed against her chest at 3 a.m. when Oliver woke screaming, his tiny fists batting at nothing. It filled the spaces between feedings, between the laundry cycles, between the moments when she caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. The walk-up apartment in Alston was small. 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen with a temperamental stove, windows that rattled when the wind picked up off the Charles. But it was hers. The lease was in her name. The bills were manageable. Barely. Oliver, Ollie, she called him when it was just the two of them, had her dark hair and a cry that could shatter glass. He was 8 weeks old now, still figuring out the difference between night and day. So was she. Ava sat in the rocking chair her neighbor had donated, Ollie latched and feeding with the single-minded focus of someone who had no concept of rent or shift schedules, or the fact that his mother had not slept more than 3 consecutive hours since he was born. She stroked his head, the soft fontanelle pulsing under her fingertips, and felt the exhaustion settle like a second skin. Her phone buzzed on the side table. A text from the hospital. "Scheduler. Can you pick up a double on Saturday?" Jenna called out. Ava closed her eyes. She needed the money. The daycare deposit was due in 2 weeks, and the wait list was still 30 names deep. She texted back, "Yes." The television murmured in the background. Some local news segment she had not bothered to turn off. She was about to reach for the remote, when a familiar name stopped her cold. Hawthorne Capital announced today a $15 million expansion of the cardiovascular wing at Boston Medical Center. Founder Grant Hawthorne spoke at the groundbreaking ceremony this morning. The camera cut to him. Same dark eyes, same controlled posture. He wore a navy suit and a practiced smile, shaking hands with hospital administrators and city officials. The smoke and panic from that night were nowhere in his expression. Ava turned the television off. Ollie finished feeding, and she lifted him to her shoulder, patting his back in slow circles until he burped. She carried him to the nursery, really just a corner of her bedroom with a crib and a changing table, and laid him down. He fussed for a moment, then settled, his small chest rising and falling in the dim glow of the nightlight. She stood there longer than she needed to, watching him, memorizing the curve of his cheek, the way his fingers curled into loose fists. She had not told anyone, not her coworkers, not her brother in Oregon, not even Leo, her best friend since film. School, who had been asking pointed questions for months about Ollie's father. What was there to say? That she had signed away her right to speak? That the man who wrote the checks for hospital wings did not know he had a son sleeping in a hand-me-down crib in Alston? It was easier this way. Cleaner. At least that was what she told herself. The next afternoon, Ava brought Ollie to his 2-month checkup. Priya Desai met them in the exam room with her usual warmth, a quick hug for Ava, a cooed greeting for Ollie, who responded by spitting up on her sleeve. "He has excellent timing," Priya said, laughing as she wiped it off. The checkup went smoothly. Weight up, length up, reflexes strong. But when Priya checked the rash on Ollie's torso, small red patches that had appeared 2 days earlier, her expression shifted into something more careful. "This looks like contact dermatitis," Priya said. "Probably a mild allergy. I am going to prescribe a gentle cream, and we will monitor it. But Ava, I need to ask, do you have any paternal family history? Allergies, asthma, eczema?" Ava felt her stomach tighten. "I do not have that information." Priya looked up, her gaze kind but direct. "Is there any way to get it? Even just a basic rundown? It would help us stay ahead of anything that develops." "I will see what I can do." Priya nodded and did not push. That was one of the things Ava loved about her. She knew when to leave space. That evening, after Ollie was asleep, Ava sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cold tea and the small manila envelope she had shoved into the back of her desk drawer months ago. The NDA was still crisp, unsigned by anyone but her. Victoria Crane's business card was clipped to the corner, but beneath it, in small print at the bottom of the second page, was a contact number, direct line, emergency use only. Ava stared at it until the numbers blurred. Her hand shook as she picked up her phone. She did not call. Not yet. But she opened a new message and typed the number into the recipient field. The cursor blinked. She sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the empty text box, before finally typing, "We need to talk. It is about that night, and something else." She hit send before she could change her mind. Then she set the phone face down on the table and waited. The text sat unanswered for 3 days. Ava checked her phone compulsively. Between patients, during her lunch break, in the GE elevator on the way to the parking garage. Nothing. No response. No indication he had even seen it. She told herself it was better this way. Maybe the number was old. Maybe he had changed it after that night, scrubbed every connection to the chaos at the Copley Grand. Maybe Victoria Crane had intercepted it and deleted it before it ever reached him. She almost believed that. On the 4th day, the hospital held its donor recognition ceremony in the atrium. Ava had forgotten about it entirely until her supervisor reminded her that morning. All staff were expected to attend, even for 10 minutes, show gratitude, represent the department. Ava showed up in scrubs, hair tied back, still smelling faintly of antiseptic from the 2nd-degree burn she had just dressed in the ER. She stood near the back of the crowd, behind a cluster of administrators in blazers and pearls, and tried not to check her phone again. The hospital president spoke first. Something about community investment and life-saving innovation. Ava tuned it out. Ollie had been up 4 times the night before, and her skull felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Then the president introduced the keynote donor. Please welcome Grant Hawthorne, founder of Hawthorne Capital. Ava's head snapped up. He walked to the podium in a gray suit, no tie, the kind of understated wealth that did not need to announce itself. The applause was polite, measured. He smiled, controlled, practiced, and began speaking about healthcare access and the importance of emergency services. Ava could not hear the words. Her pulse was too loud in her ears. She should leave, slip out the side door before anyone noticed. But her legs would not move. Grant was mid-sentence, talking about response times, when his gaze swept the crowd. It was automatic, the kind of thing speakers do to make eye contact, to create connection. And then he saw her. He stopped. It was only half a beat, a fraction of a second, but Ava saw it. The pause, the flicker of recognition. His hand tightened on the edge of the podium. Then he recovered, smoothly, professionally. He finished the sentence, smiled again, and continued as if nothing had happened. But Ava knew, and from the way his eyes kept drifting back to her spot in the crowd, he knew she knew. The speech ended. More applause. The crowd began to disperse toward the refreshment tables set up near the windows. Ava turned toward the exit. Excuse me, his voice, right behind her. She stopped, her hand already on the door. Slowly, she turned. Grant stood 3 feet away, his expression careful, unreadable. But there was something in his eyes, something that looked like relief and fear braided together. I wanted to thank you, he said. His voice was quieter than it had been at the podium. Properly, for that night. You do not need to, Ava said. Her voice came out steady, professional, nurse voice. I was just doing my job. You did more than that. He paused, searching her face. I never got your name. Ava. Grant. He held out his hand. She shook it briefly. His palm was warm, his grip firm, but not aggressive. It lasted 2 seconds, maybe 3. I should get back to my shift, Ava said, pulling her hand away. Of course. But he did not move. Did you try to reach me? Recently? Her stomach dropped. So he had seen the text. I did, she said carefully. But it can wait. It sounded important. It is. The air between them felt charged, too full. Around them, hospital staff mingled with donors, laughing over coffee and pastries. No one was paying attention to the nurse in scrubs and the billionaire by the exit. Can we talk? Grant asked. Not here. Somewhere private. Ava hesitated. Every instinct told her to walk away, to protect Ollie, to protect herself. But Priya's words echoed in her mind. Do you have any paternal family history? I will call you, Ava said finally. Soon. She pushed through the door before he could respond. Her hands were shaking as she walked down the corridor toward the ER. She did not look back. Across the atrium, near the refreshment table, Victoria Crane stood with a glass of sparkling water in one hand and her phone in the other. She had watched the entire exchange. Her expression did not change. She simply opened her messages and typed a quick note to building security. Pull footage from atrium, 11 Nagrand to 11:30 a.m., all angles. Send to my personal email. Then she took a sip of her water and smiled at the hospital president as he approached. Wonderful event. Victoria said warmly. Grant was very moved. She glanced once more toward the exit where Ava had disappeared. Then she made another call. Margaret, she said when the line connected. We need to meet. Tonight. The rash came back on a Tuesday. Ava noticed it during the morning diaper change. Angrier this time, spreading from Ollie's chest down to his belly in raised red welts. He had been fussy all night, rubbing his face against her shoulder, whimpering in a way that made her chest ache. She called Priya before her shift started. Bring him in, Priya said immediately. No hesitation. I have a slot at 9. Ava canceled her morning at the hospital, something she never did, and drove Ollie to the pediatric clinic with the heat on full blast, even though it was 60 degrees outside. He cried the entire way, his small body arching in the car seat like he was trying to escape his own skin. Priya examined him quickly, her hands gentle but efficient. She listened to his lungs, checked his throat, pressed lightly on the rash, and watched how quickly the color returned. It is not infected, Priya said finally, but it is progressing. This is more than contact dermatitis. I am seeing a pattern that suggests a deeper sensitivity, possibly environmental, possibly food-related if you have introduced anything new. But Ava, without a paternal history, I am working blind here. She sat down on the rolling stool and looked at Ava directly. If there is any family history of severe allergies, asthma, autoimmune conditions, I need to know. Because if this escalates, if we are dealing with something systemic, I want to be prepared, not reactive. Ava felt the words like a hand around her throat. Ollie fussed on the exam table, his face red and damp. She picked him up and held him against her chest, his heartbeat fluttering against hers like a trapped bird. I will get it, Ava said quietly. The history. I will get it. Priya nodded. She did not ask questions. She never did. That night, after Ollie finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, a thin layer of cortisone cream on his chest, Ava sat on the couch in the dark and opened her phone. The previous text sat there, unanswered except for the read receipt that had appeared 2 days after the hospital. Event. She started typing 3 different messages and deleted them all. Finally, she stopped thinking and just wrote, This is Ava Reed. We met 7 months ago at the Copley Grand, and again last week at the hospital. I would not reach out unless it was necessary, but it is. I need to talk to you about that night, and about what came after. It is medical. It is urgent. Please respond. She hit send. Then she sat in the silence of her apartment, listening to the radiator click and hiss, and waited. Across the city, in a glass-walled conference room on the 40th floor of the Hawthorne Capitol Tower, Grant sat at the head of a long table surrounded by 8 board members, 2 lawyers, and Victoria Crane. They were reviewing the merger documentation for the 3rd time that week, an acquisition that would double their portfolio and cement Hawthorne Capital as the dominant fintech player on the East Coast. Grant had been working toward this for 2 years. Victoria was mid-sentence, outlining the press strategy for the announcement, when Grant's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it. The name on the screen made his chest tighten. Ava Reed. He picked up the phone. Grant, Victoria said, her voice sharp. We are on a timeline. 1 moment. He read the message once, then again. Medical. Urgent. His mind went to 1,000 places at once. An injury. A lawsuit. Something from that night he had not accounted for. But the word after snagged. In his brain like a fishhook. What came after? He stood abruptly. I need 5 minutes. Grant. We are in the middle of 5 minutes. He walked out of the conference room, ignoring the looks exchanged around the table, and closed himself in his office. The city stretched out below him, lights beginning to flicker on as dusk settled over Boston Harbor. He read the message a 3rd time. Then he typed, Name the place. He sent it before he could second-guess himself. The response came 30 seconds later. There is a mediator, Samir Patel. His office is neutral. I already reached out. He can meet us Thursday at noon. Will that work? Grant stared at the word mediator for a long time. Whatever this was, it was not a simple conversation. He typed, I will be there. Send me the address. The address came through. A small office building in Cambridge near Kendall Square. He added it to his calendar. Then he stood at the window, his phone still in his hand, and tried to remember every detail of that night. The smoke, the panic, her voice, steady and sure. The NDA Victoria had insisted on. What came after? He looked at his reflection in the glass. A man in a tailored suit, a corner office, a deal that would make headlines. And for the first time in years, none of it felt like enough. He walked back into the conference room. Victoria looked up, her expression tight with impatience. "Are we ready to continue?" she asked. "Clear my schedule for Thursday," Grant said. "Noon to 2. You have the investor call at noon. We cannot move it." "Move it." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Grant, this is not the time for—" "Move it, Victoria." He sat back down at the head of the table, his phone face down, and nodded for the lawyers to continue. But his mind was already in Cambridge, already in a room he had never seen, already preparing for a conversation he could not predict. Samir Patel's office was nothing like Grant expected. No marble lobby, no receptionist behind a glossy desk, just a narrow building wedged between a coffee shop and a yoga studio, with a buzzer system that barely worked and stairs that creaked under his weight. The office itself was on the 3rd floor, one room with bookshelves lining 2 walls, a small conference table, and windows that looked out onto a tree-lined street where students walked with backpacks and iced coffees. Samir was waiting when Grant arrived. Mid-40s, trim beard, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook Grant's hand with a grip that was firm but not performative. "Mr. Hawthorne, thank you for coming." "Just Grant." Samir nodded. "Ava will be here in a few minutes. I want to set some ground rules before we start. This is a conversation, not a negotiation, not a mediation in the legal sense. Not yet. My job is to make sure both of you feel safe enough to speak honestly. Does that work for you?" "Yes." Grant sat in one of the chairs, facing the door. His phone was on silent in his jacket pocket. He had told Victoria he had a personal matter to attend to, and nothing more. She had not believed him. He could see it in the tightness around her mouth, but she had not pushed. Not yet. The door opened. Ava stepped inside, and Grant felt the air shift. She wore jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. She looked tired, deep tired, the kind that lived in the bones, but her eyes were clear. She sat across from him. Samir took the chair at the head of the table, equidistant between them. "Thank you both for being here," Samir said. "Ava, whenever you are ready." Ava folded her hands on the table. She did not look at Grant immediately. She looked at her hands. Then she spoke. "That night at the hotel," she said quietly, "after I helped you, after I signed the NDA, I left. I went home, and I did not think about it again. Not for a few weeks." Grant watched her, waiting. "And then I found out I was pregnant." The words landed like a stone in still water. Grant did not move, did not breathe. "I thought about reaching out," Ava continued, her voice steady now, like she had rehearsed this. "But I had signed that agreement, and I did not know you. I did not know if you would believe me, or if your people would make it impossible. So I decided to handle it alone." She finally looked up, met his eyes. "I had a son. His name is Oliver. He is 7 months old, and he is yours." The room was silent except for the faint hum of traffic outside. Grant opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "You are sure?" "Yes." "How?" Ava reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table. Grant opened it. Inside were printed pages. Medical records. A birth certificate with Ava Reed listed. Father unknown. Printed photos. A tiny newborn with dark hair. A baby in a bouncer, gumming a cloth book. A close-up of his face, his eyes wide and curious. Grant stared at the last photo for a long time. The eyes. They were his eyes. "I would not have contacted you," Ava said, "except he has been having medical issues. A rash, possible allergies. The pediatrician needs a paternal family history to rule out anything serious. That is why I am here. Not for money, not for anything except information that could keep him safe." Grant set the folder down carefully, like it might shatter. His hands were shaking. "I need a moment," he said. Samir nodded. "Take your time." Grant stood and walked to the window. He braced his hands on the sill and stared out at the street below. A woman pushed a stroller past the coffee shop. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. He had a son. He had a son he had never met, never held, never even known existed until 3 minutes ago. He thought of his own childhood, the boarding schools, the nannies, the carefully curated public appearances. his father shaking hands with investors, while Grant sat in the corner with a book, his mother planning charity galas instead of bedtime stories. He thought of the life he had built, the control, the distance, the perfectly managed image, and then he thought of the boy in the photo, small and helpless and entirely real. He turned back to Ava. "I want a paternity test," he said. His voice was rough. "Not because I do not believe you, but because I need to know. Legally. Completely." Ava nodded. "I expected that. And if it is confirmed..." He stopped. Started again. "When it is confirmed, I want to meet him. I need conditions," Ava said immediately. "No press, no cameras, no people I do not know showing up at my apartment. And we go slow. He does not know you. He is a baby. He needs consistency." "Agreed." Samir made a note on his legal pad. "I can coordinate the test. Expedited results. Fully confidential. We should have confirmation within 72 hours. Grant sat back down. He looked at Ava, really looked at her, and saw the exhaustion, the fear, the fierce protectiveness radiating off her like heat. "Why now?" he asked. "Why not 6 months ago? Or 3? "Because I was afraid," Ava said simply. "Of you, of your lawyers, of losing him. But he is more important than my fear." Grant nodded slowly. "I will cover all medical expenses," he said, retroactively, and going forward. "Whatever he needs. That is not why I am here. I know, but it is what I can do right now." Ava held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. Samir closed his folder. "I will send over the testing information tonight. Let us reconvene once we have results." They stood. Grant reached for the folder of photos, then stopped. "Can I keep one?" he asked quietly. "Just one." Ava hesitated. Then she opened the folder and pulled out the close-up, the one with the wide dark eyes. "This one," she said. Grant took it carefully, like it was made of glass. "Thank you." She nodded and left without another word. Grant stood in the small office, the photo in his hand, and felt his entire world tilt on its axis. Across the city, in the Hawthorne Capitol building, Victoria Crane sat at her desk and reviewed the security footage Samir Patel's building did not have. But the coffee shop next door did. And the timestamp showed Grant Hawthorne entering at 11:58 a.m., followed 6 minutes later by a woman with a ponytail and a canvas bag. Victoria made a call. "Margaret?" She said when the line connected. "We have a situation." The test results came back in 60 hours. Grant was in a breakfast meeting with a venture capital group when his phone vibrated. He excused himself, walked into the hallway, and opened the email from Samir Patel. Probability of paternity, 99.997%. He leaned against the wall and read it 3 more times. He had a son. The reality of it crashed over him like a wave. Not the idea, not the possibility, but the absolute certainty. Oliver Reed was his child, a 7-month-old boy he had never held. He called Samir immediately. "I saw the results," Grant said. "I want to meet him. As soon as Ava is comfortable. I will reach out to her today," Samir replied. "But Grant, go slow. Let her set the pace." Grant agreed, but every cell in his body wanted to drive to Alston right now. He returned to the conference room, shook hands, signed the preliminary paperwork for the venture deal, and felt like he was watching himself from a distance. That evening, Ava received a text from Samir with the results attached. She sat on the couch, Ollie asleep in her arms, and let out a breath she had been holding for months. It was real now, legal, undeniable. Grant called an hour later. Samir had given him permission to reach out directly. "I want to meet him," Grant said as soon as she answered. "Whenever you are ready, I will come to you." Ava looked down at Ollie, his small face peaceful in sleep. "Saturday," she said. 2 o'clock. My apartment. Just you. No assistants. No drivers waiting outside. Just me," Grant promised. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Grant stood outside Ava's building at 1:55, holding a small bag with a stuffed giraffe inside that he had spent 40 minutes picking out at a children's store in Back Bay. He climbed the narrow stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked. Ava opened the door. She looked nervous. "Come in." The apartment was small but warm. Toys scattered across the floor. A drying rack with tiny clothes in the kitchen. The faint smell of baby powder and coffee. Ollie was in a bouncer near the window, chewing on a rubber teething ring. He looked up when Grant entered, his dark eyes curious. Grant froze. You can sit, Ava said quietly. He does not bite yet. Grant sat on the floor near the bouncer, slowly, carefully, like he was approaching something wild and precious. Ollie watched him, then went back to the teething ring. "Hi," Grant said softly. His voice cracked. "Hi, Ollie." The baby looked at him again, blinked, and then, impossibly, smiled. Grant felt something break open inside his chest. They sat like that for 20 minutes. Grant on the floor, Ollie and the bouncer. Ava watched from the couch, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "He has your eyes," Grant said finally. "He has your stubborn streak." Grant laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of him. Ava softened slightly. "There are rules," she said. "If you want to be part of this, tell me. You show up, consistently. Not when it is convenient, not when your schedule allows. You make him a priority. You do not make promises you cannot keep, and you do not bring your world into his unless I say it is safe." Grant nodded. "I can do that. And no one knows yet. Not your staff, not your family, not until we figure out what this looks like." "Agreed." Ava studied him for a long moment. "You can hold him," she said. "If you want." Grant looked at her, startled. She lifted Ollie from the bouncer and walked over. She placed him carefully in Grant's arms, adjusting his hands into the right position. Ollie was warm and solid and impossibly small. Grant looked down at his son, and felt the ground shift beneath him. "I am not going anywhere," he whispered. Across town, Victoria Crane sat in Margaret Hawthorne's sitting room and laid out a folder of printed surveillance photos. "This is the woman from the hospital," Victoria said. "Ava Reed, ER nurse, single mother, and as of this week, confirmed mother of Grant's biological child." Margaret's face remained composed, but her hand tightened on her teacup. "Does Grant know you are here?" "No." "Then why are you?" Victoria leaned forward. "Because this could destroy everything we have built. The merger, the family reputation, unless we manage it correctly." Margaret set down her cup. "What do you suggest?" Victoria smiled. "I suggest we offer Miss Reed a very generous arrangement, one that ensures her silence and her distance." Margaret considered this. "Set up a meeting," she said finally, "but do it carefully. I will not have this blowback on Grant." Victoria stood. "Leave it to me." Grant showed up every Saturday, 2:00, on the dot. No assistants, no security, just him and a rotating selection of educational toys that Ava kept telling him were too advanced for a 7-month-old. "He cannot read yet," Ava said the third week, holding up a cloth book about marine biology. "But when he can, he will be prepared." She rolled her eyes, but she kept the book. The visits stretched longer each time. 2 hours became 3, 3 became 4. Grant learned how to warm a bottle to the exact right temperature, how to burp Ollie without getting spit up on his shirt. He failed at that one consistently. And how to read the different types of cries. Hungry cry, tired cry, the sharp, angry cry that meant a diaper situation. "You are getting better," Ava admitted one afternoon, watching Grant navigate a particularly explosive diaper change with only moderate panic. "I have had excellent teachers," Grant said. He meant Ollie and her both. Leo showed up unannounced during the 4th visit. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with paint-stained jeans and a messenger bag covered in film festival pins. He stopped in the doorway, took one look at Grant holding Ollie, and turned to Ava. "So this is him." "Leo?" Ava said warningly. "What? I am just observing." Leo walked over and held out his hand. "Leo Morgan, best friend, godfather, also the person who will make your life extremely difficult if you hurt them." Grant shook his hand. "Understood." Leo studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You show up again next week?" "Yes." "Good." He left as abruptly as he had arrived. "Sorry," Ava said. "Do not be. I like him." By the 6th week, they had fallen into a rhythm. Grant would arrive. Ava would hand over Ollie and disappear into her bedroom for an hour, the only time she allowed herself to nap. Grant would sit on the floor with Ollie, stacking soft blocks, reading board books in different voices, learning how to make his son laugh. One Saturday, Ava came out of her room to find Grant asleep on the couch, Ollie asleep on his chest, one of Grant's hands cradling the back of Ollie's head. She stood in the doorway and felt something crack open inside her. She took a photo. She did not know why, but she saved it. That evening, after Grant left, Ava received an email from an unfamiliar address. Miss Reed, my name is Victoria Crane. I believe we have met. I would like to discuss a private matter that concerns both you and Grant Hawthorne. Would you be available for coffee this week? My treat. Please let me know what works for your schedule. Ava stared at the message. Then she forwarded it to Grant. His response came 2 minutes later. Do not meet with her. Please. Ava called him. Why not? She asked. Grant was quiet for a long moment. Because Victoria manages problems, and she will see you and Ollie as a problem to be managed. I am not afraid of her. I know, but I am asking you, please. Let me handle it. Ava heard something in his voice she had not heard before. Not control, not authority. Fear. Okay, she said finally. But if she pushes, she will not. I will make sure of it. That night, Grant called Victoria. We need to talk, he said. My office. Monday morning. Monday came. Victoria arrived at 8 sharp, perfectly composed. Grant did not offer her coffee. I know about the email you sent to Ava, he said. Do not contact her again. Victoria raised an eyebrow. I was simply extending a courtesy. No, you were testing boundaries. I am setting them now. Ava and Ollie are off limits. Completely. You do not approach them. You do not investigate. Them. You do not suggest arrangements or agreements or anything else. Do you understand? Victoria's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. I work for you, Grant. Everything I do is to protect your interests. Then protect them by staying away from my son. The word hung in the air. Victoria smiled thinly. So it is true. Yes. And you are planning to… what? Play house? Pretend this will not affect the business? The merger? Your family? I am planning to be a father. The rest we will figure out. Victoria stood. You are making a mistake. Maybe, but it is mine to make. She left without another word. Grant sat at his desk and pulled out the photo Ava had texted him the night before. Ollie laughing, his whole face lit up. He had already set it as his phone background. He knew what was coming. Victoria would not stop. His mother would not stay silent. The press would eventually find out. But for now, for this moment, he had. Saturdays. And that was enough. The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock, hand-delivered to Ava's apartment by a courier in a black sedan. Margaret Hawthorne requests the pleasure of your company for tea. Thursday at 3. A car will be sent. No phone number. No option to decline. Ava texted Grant immediately. Your mother invited me to tea. Do not go. I am going. Ava. She is his grandmother. I am not hiding. Grant called her. My mother is not like Victoria. He said carefully. She will not threaten you, but she will try to manage you. Politely, kindly, and you will not even realize it is happening until you have agreed to something you never intended. I can handle myself. Grant sighed. I know you can. Just be careful, please. Thursday arrived. The car was exactly on time. Black, sleek, silent. The driver opened the door without a word. Ava wore jeans and a sweater. She had considered dressing up, then decided against it. She was not auditioning for anything. The Hawthorne townhouse was in Beacon Hill. Red brick, black shutters, gas lamps flanking the door. Old money, quiet power. A housekeeper answered and led Ava through a foyer with marble floors and a chandelier that probably cost more than Ava's annual salary. They walked into a sitting room with tall windows, antique furniture, and a tea service already arranged on a low table. Margaret Hawthorne stood near the window. She was tall, elegant, silver hair swept, back in a flawless chignon. She wore a cashmere dress the color of fog. When she turned, her smile was warm. Ava, thank you for coming. Mrs. Hawthorne. Margaret, please. Sit. Ava sat. Margaret poured tea with the kind of practiced grace that looked effortless but was not. Milk? Sugar? Black is fine. Margaret handed her the cup, then sat across from her. I imagine this is all very overwhelming, Margaret said. Finding Grant again. The paternity situation. I want you to know that I am here to help. Ava said nothing, just waited. Grant has told me about Oliver. I would very much like to meet him. When you feel ready, of course. That is between Grant and me. Of course. Margaret's smile did not waver. I also wanted to discuss something that might ease some of the pressure you must be under. Raising a child alone. Working full-time. It cannot be easy. I manage. I am sure you do. but you should not have to simply manage. The Hawthorne Foundation is always looking for dedicated professionals. We have an opening for a director of community health initiatives. It is a salaried position, excellent benefits, flexible hours, and it would allow you to focus on Oliver without the demands of emergency room shifts. Ava set down her teacup carefully. That is generous. We take care of our own. And what would this position require? Margaret's expression did not change, but Ava saw the calculation behind her eyes. The usual. Responsibilities. Program development. Donor relations. Some travel, though minimal. And of course, given the visibility of the foundation, a certain level of discretion regarding personal matters. There it was. You want me to stay quiet, Ava said. I want you to have stability, for yourself and for Oliver. The foundation work is real. The position is legitimate. But yes, it would be helpful if we could avoid unnecessary public attention. For everyone involved. Ava stood. Thank you for the tea, but I am not interested. Margaret's composure cracked slightly. Miss Reed, please sit. Let us discuss this reasonably. There is nothing to discuss. I have a job I am good at. I have a life I built, and I am not interested in being managed, however politely. I am trying to help you. No, you are trying to control a situation you find uncomfortable. But Oliver is not a situation. He is a person, and I will not take money to keep him hidden. Ava walked toward the door. Margaret followed. You do not understand the scrutiny that comes with this family, Margaret said, her voice sharper now. The press, the judgment. It will not just affect you, it will affect Oliver. Ava turned back. Then maybe you should prepare your family for honesty, instead of teaching them to hide. She left before Margaret could respond. The car was waiting. Ava texted Grant from the back seat. Your mother offered me a job. I declined. Are you okay? Yes, but we need to talk. Soon. That night, Leo showed up at Ava's apartment with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. Spill, he said. Ava told him everything. The tea, the offer, Margaret's thinly veiled suggestions. Leo listened, eating lo mein directly from the container. So what are you going to do? He asked finally. Keep going. Keep showing up for Ollie. Keep letting Grant be part of this. And when the press finds out, because they will, then we deal with it. Leo pointed his chopsticks at her. You know I have contacts. Film people. Media people. If this goes sideways, I can make calls. I know. And I love you for it. But right now, I just need to keep things stable. The next morning, Ava woke to a notification on her phone. A gossip blog. A blind item. Which Boston tech titan has been spotted making mysterious weekly visits to a modest Alston apartment? Rumor has it there is a tiny new addition to his portfolio, and we are not talking about stocks. Ava's hands went cold. She called Grant. I saw it, he said before she could speak. I am handling it. How did they? I do not know, but I am going to find out. Ava looked at Ollie, still asleep in his crib, completely unaware that his life was about to change. She took a breath. Grant, we need to get ahead of this, before someone else controls the story. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting we stop hiding. The photographers showed up on Monday. Ava stepped out of her building at 6:30 in the morning. Ollie bundled against her chest in a carrier and walked directly into a wall of flashing lights. Ava, is it true you are Grant Hawthorne's girlfriend? How long have you been together? Is the baby his? She froze. Ollie started crying against the sudden noise, his small body going rigid with fear. Leo appeared from nowhere. He must have been waiting in his car, and pushed through the crowd, his arm around Ava's shoulders. Back up, he said, his voice hard. You are scaring the baby. He got them to her car. Ava strapped Ollie into his seat with shaking hands, her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. I am following you to the hospital, Leo said. Do not stop. Do not talk to anyone. Ava nodded and drove. The photographers followed. By noon, the story was everywhere. Hawthorne's secret baby. ER nurse claims billionaire's child. The headlines made it sound like a shakedown, like Ava was chasing money, leveraging a baby for a payout. Grant called her between meetings. I'm coming over tonight. No, they will get pictures. It will make it worse. I do not care about pictures. I do. For Ollie. Grant was silent. I am going to release a statement, he said finally. Through my lawyer, not Victoria, not the PR team. A A simple, factual statement. Saying what? That I have a son, that his privacy and safety are my priority, and that anyone who harasses you or Ollie will face legal action. Ava closed her eyes. That will make it real. It already is real. We are just naming it now. That afternoon, Grant sat in his office and wrote the statement himself. No corporate speak. No carefully hedged phrases. I am the father of a 7-month-old son. His mother is a dedicated healthcare professional who has raised him with extraordinary care and strength. We are navigating co-parenting privately, and I ask that the press respect the privacy of a child who cannot consent to public attention. Any further harassment of his mother will be met with legal action. He sent it to Samir. Then he called his mother. I am releasing a statement about Ollie. Margaret's voice was ice. Without consulting me. I am informing you, not asking permission. This is a mistake, Grant. Maybe. But he is my son, and I will not hide him to protect a brand. He hung up before she could respond. The statement went out at 4 p.m. The internet exploded. Some outlets praised him for stepping up. Others questioned the timeline, the secrecy, Ava's motives. The comments sections were brutal. Ava turned off her phone and held Ollie close, rocking him in the darkened apartment while the world outside spun out of control. Grant sat in his office and watched the news alerts pile up. Victoria called 6 times. He ignored everyone. Then, at 7 p.m., something shifted. A new post appeared. Not from a tabloid. From an ER physician at Boston Medical Center. I have worked with Ava Reed for 3 years. She is one of the best nurses I have ever seen. Calm, skilled, deeply compassionate. The narrative being spun about her is false. She is not chasing money. She is raising her son and doing her job. Leave her alone. Within an hour, more posts followed. Nurses, patients, co-workers. Ava Reed saved my mother's life during a cardiac event. She is a hero. Ava stayed 2 hours past her shift to make sure my daughter was stable. She is the real deal. The tide turned. Not completely, but enough. Grant called Ava that night. Are you okay? No, but I will be. I'm sorry for all of this. It is not your fault. It feels like it is. Ava was quiet for a moment. Grant, I need you to do something. Anything. Fire Victoria. Silence. She is the one leaking, Ava said. The blind items, the photos. She is trying to force your hand, to make you choose the company over us. You know I am right. Grant closed his eyes. I know. So do it. Or I walk. I will co-parent with you, but I will not let her manipulate my life. Okay. I will handle it tomorrow. The next morning, Grant called Victoria into his office. She walked in with her usual confidence, tablet in hand. We need to discuss the media strategy. You are done, Grant said. Victoria stopped. Excuse me? I am terminating your contract, effective immediately. Samir will send the paperwork. Her expression hardened. You are making a mistake. Maybe, but it is mine to make. Victoria set down her tablet carefully. You will regret this. When the board pushes back, when the merger falls apart, when your perfect little family realizes the cost of your choices. Get out, Victoria. She smiled. Thin, cold. I will go, but I am filing a formal complaint. About Miss Reed, about conflicts of interest, about the entire mess you have created. Do what you need to do, but stay away from Ava and Ollie. Victoria left. Grant sat in the silence and felt the full weight of what he had just done. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Ava. Thank you. He looked at the photo on his desk. Ollie smiling, his whole face bright. And he knew he had made the right choice. The mediation hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a gray Tuesday in November. Victoria had filed a complaint through her attorney. Nothing criminal, but enough to require official response. Allegations of favoritism, conflicts of interest, unprofessional conduct. All carefully worded, all designed to damage without directly accusing. Samir had warned them both. This is theater, he said. She wants a public record that paints Grant as reckless and Ava as opportunistic. Do not give her the show. Stay calm. Stick to facts. They met at the courthouse. A small hearing room, not a full trial. Ava wore a simple dress and flats. Grant wore a suit but no tie. Victoria arrived with 2 lawyers and a leather folio full of printed documents. The mediator was a woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense. Let us be clear, she said. This is not a trial. This is a dispute resolution session. Miss Crane, your complaint alleges professional misconduct and coercive behavior. Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Reed, you have the opportunity to respond. Let us proceed. Victoria's lawyer spoke first. He outlined the timeline. The hotel incident, the NDA, Ava's sudden reappearance, Grant's weekly visits. The implication was clear. Ava had leveraged a one-night encounter into a long-term financial arrangement. Ava felt her face flush. Grant's jaw tightened. When the lawyer finished, Samir stood. May I present evidence? The mediator nodded. Samir pulled out a folder. Inside were text messages, medical records, receipts from Ava's daycare payments, her rent, her grocery bills, months of documentation showing she had asked for nothing. Miss Reed did not contact Mr. Hawthorne. For 7 months, Samir said calmly. Not for money, not for support. She reached out because her son had a medical issue requiring paternal history. That is it. She has refused financial assistance multiple times. She has set boundaries to protect her child. She is not opportunistic. She is a mother. The mediator reviewed the documents. Then she looked at Ava. Miss Reed, would you like to speak? Ava stood. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I signed an NDA because I was told it would protect my job. I did not speak up about my pregnancy because I was afraid of lawyers, of losing custody, of being destroyed by people with more power than me. I did my best with what I had, and when my son needed his father's medical history, I put aside my fear and asked. That is all I have ever done. Try to protect my son. The room was silent. The mediator made a note. Then she looked at Victoria. Miss Crane, do you have evidence that Miss Reed coerced? Mr. Hawthorne demanded payment, threatened exposure? Victoria hesitated. The pattern of behavior, that is not evidence. That is speculation. Victoria's lawyer leaned in, whispered something. We believe the relationship compromised Mr. Hawthorne's professional judgment, the lawyer said. The mediator turned to Grant. Mr. Hawthorne, has Miss Reed ever asked you for money? No. Has she threatened you in any way? No. Then what is the nature of your complaint, Miss Crane? Victoria's composure cracked slightly. He fired me, without cause, because she manipulated him. Grant stood. I fired you because you leaked private information to the press. You violated the trust of your position. You tried to control a situation that was none of your business. Ava had nothing to do with it. The mediator held up a hand. This is not a wrongful termination hearing. That is a separate matter. For the purposes of this complaint, regarding Miss Reed, I see no evidence of misconduct. Dismissed. Victoria went pale. You cannot. I just did. Next case. They filed out of the courthouse into weak November sunlight. Victoria walked past them without a word, her lawyers flanking her like guards. Grant turned to Ava. Are you okay? I am exhausted. Me too. Samir shook both their hands. That went as well as it could have, but Victoria will not let this go. Be prepared for more noise. He left. Ava and Grant stood on the courthouse steps, the city moving around them. There is going to be press, Grant said, about the hearing, about Victoria's complaint. I want to get ahead of it. How? A statement, short, clear, no spin, just the truth. That afternoon, Grant released a second statement. I am a father. I take that role seriously. I have ended professional relationships that compromised my ability to prioritize my son's well-being. I value privacy and accountability. That is all I will say on this matter. The media response was mixed. Some called it cryptic. Others called it classy. But the story began to shift. Grant Hawthorne was not a scandal. He was a father protecting his family. That evening, Ava received an unexpected text. This is Margaret Hawthorne. I owe you an apology. May I visit? Ava stared at the message. Then she texted back. Saturday, 2 p.m. Bring something for Ollie. Nothing expensive. Saturday came. Margaret arrived with a small wrapped box and a quiet humility Ava had not expected. This was Grant's, Margaret said, handing her the box. I thought Ollie might like it. Inside was a soft blue blanket, worn but clean, with small embroidered stars. Thank you. Margaret sat carefully on the couch. Ava placed Ollie in her arms. Margaret looked down at her grandson, and her eyes filled with tears. I am still learning, she said quietly. How to let go. How to trust. I am sorry for trying to manage you. Ava watched her hold Ollie with surprising gentleness. I appreciate that. May I visit again? Yes, but on Ollie's terms, not yours. Margaret nodded. That is fair. When she left, she paused at the door. Grant chose well, she said. Ollie is lucky to have you. Ava closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. December arrived with early snow. The photographers were gone. The headlines had moved on to the next scandal. Life settled into something that almost felt normal. Grant came by 3 times a week now. Not just Saturdays. Tuesdays for dinner. Thursdays after work. Weekends for longer stretches. He learned how to make Ollie laugh by making ridiculous faces. He memorized which songs calmed him down during fussy evenings. He changed diapers without flinching and could assemble the complicated stroller in under 2 minutes. Ava watched him become a father in real time. One evening, Grant arrived with paint samples. What are these for? Ava asked. The nursery? Grant. Ollie has a nursery. At your place. I want one at mine too. For overnights. When you are ready. Ava looked at the paint chips. Soft blues, warm greens. Nothing flashy. Show me the room first. The following Saturday, Ava drove to Grant's townhouse in the South End. She had never been inside. It was elegant, but not cold. High ceilings, original woodwork, large windows overlooking a small garden. Grant led her upstairs to a bedroom at the end of the hall. I cleared it out, he said. I wanted you to see it before I did anything permanent. The room was empty except for pale winter light and potential. It is perfect, Ava said. They spent the afternoon choosing furniture online. A crib that matched Ava's, a changing table, a rocking chair. Grant insisted on blackout curtains. Ava insisted on a sound machine. You are turning into a real parent, she teased. I am terrified constantly. Does that count? That is exactly what counts. By mid-December, the nursery was finished. Grant sent her a photo. The crib assembled, the walls painted a soft sage green, a mobile with wooden animals hanging above. Ready when you are. Ava looked at Ollie, now 9 months old, pulling himself up on the coffee table. She texted back. Next weekend. Overnight. If Ollie is comfortable. I will be ready. The overnight went better than Ava expected. Grant texted her updates every 2 hours. Photos of Ollie eating mashed bananas. Videos of bath time. A slightly panicked message at 2 a.m. He is crying and I have tried everything. Help. Ava called him. Put him in the carrier and walk, she said. Around the house. He likes movement. 10 minutes later. You are a genius. He is asleep. Ava smiled and went back to bed. When she picked Ollie up the next morning, Grant looked exhausted but happy. We survived, he said. You did great. Margaret had started visiting too. Once a week she would stop by, during daycare pickup. At first she was stiff, overly polite, unsure how to interact with the baby, but Ollie had a way of disarming people. One afternoon, Ava found Margaret sitting on the floor, letting Ollie stack blocks on her lap, her carefully styled hair slightly mussed. He is strong-willed, Margaret said. He gets that from both sides. Margaret smiled, a real smile. Yes, I suppose he does. By Christmas, the co-parenting schedule was solid, flexible but consistent. They had DE, a shared calendar, medical information in a cloud folder, boundaries that felt respectful rather than rigid. Leo came over on Christmas Eve with gifts, a toy camera for Ollie, a bottle of bourbon for Ava. So, he said, how are you really? Tired, happy, scared. Scared of what? Ava looked toward the nursery where Ollie was napping. That it will fall apart. That Grant will get bored of the hard parts. That I will mess this up. Leo put his arm around her. You are doing fine. Better than fine. And if he messes up, I will personally make his life difficult. I know you will. That evening, Grant texted. Do you have plans for Christmas dinner? Just me and Ollie. Would you like company? I can cook. Badly. But I can try. Ava hesitated. Then typed, come over at 5. Bring wine. Christmas dinner was simple. Roast chicken that was slightly dry. Mashed potatoes. Green beans. Ollie in his high chair, smearing sweet potato across his face. They did not talk about custody agreements or press statements or what came next. They just ate and laughed and watched Ollie try to grab the candles on the table. After dinner, Grant helped with the dishes. "This was nice," he said quietly. "It was. Ava, I want to ask you something, and you can say no." She turned from the sink. "What? Would you go to dinner with me? A real dinner. Just the two of us. No lawyers, no mediators, no Ollie. Just us." Ava dried her hands slowly. "Are you asking me on a date?" "Yes." She studied his face. The hope there. The fear. "One step at a time," she said finally. "Let us see where this goes." Grant smiled. "That is not a no." "No, it is not." He left an hour later, but before he did, he stopped at the door. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me in, for giving me a chance to be his father. You earned it." After he left, Ava checked on Ollie. He was asleep, one hand curled around the giraffe Grant had brought months ago. She stood in the doorway and realized something had shifted. She was not doing this alone anymore, and for the first time in a long time, that felt okay. March came with the kind of warmth that felt like a promise. Ava had agreed to a weekend in Nantucket, just the three of them. A small cottage Grant had rented. Nothing flashy, just a place with a porch and a view of the water. They drove out on a Friday afternoon, Ollie babbling in the back seat, the radio playing something soft and forgettable. "He is going to hate the car seat by the time we get there," Ava said. "We will stop, as many times as we need to." They stopped twice, once for a diaper change, once because Ollie threw his bottle and Ava needed coffee. The cottage was small and weathered, with blue shutters and a path that led down to the beach. Inside, it smelled like salt air and old wood. Grant carried their bags in while Ava got Ollie settled in the portable crib they had brought. The baby was tired from the drive, rubbing his eyes with tiny fists. "Go explore," Ava said. "I will get him down for a nap." Grant walked out onto the porch and looked at the ocean. The waves were gentle, rolling in with a rhythm that felt like breathing. He thought about the man he had been a year ago, controlled, distant, focused on deals and optics and maintaining a carefully constructed image. That man felt like a stranger now. Ava joined him after Ollie fell asleep. "It is beautiful," she said. "It is." They stood in silence for a moment. "I have been thinking," Grant said, "about what comes next. For us." Ava looked at him. "I do not want to rush anything," he continued, "but I want you to know, I am not going anywhere. This is not temporary for me. You and Ollie, you are not something I am managing or fitting into my schedule. You are my priority." Ava felt her throat tighten. "I know. Do you?" "Yes. You show up, Grant. Every time. You do the hard parts. You do not run when it gets messy." "I see that." Grant reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Ava's eyes widened. "This is not what you think," he said quickly. "I am not proposing. Not yet. Not until you are ready. But I wanted to give you something." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver pendant on a delicate chain. Engraved on the surface were 3 initials. A-G-O. Ava. Grant. Oliver, he said quietly. "No announcements. No press. Just us." Ava took the pendant carefully, her hands shaking. "It is perfect. Can I?" She turned and he fastened it around her neck. The silver was cool against her skin. "Thank you," she whispered. That evening they walked along the beach with Ollie in the stroller. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Ollie pointed at the waves, his mouth forming sounds that were almost words. "He is going to talk soon," Ava said. "What do you think his first word will be? Knowing him? Something stubborn." Grant laughed. They stopped near the water's edge. Grant bent down and let Ollie grab his fingers, pulling himself into a wobbly stand. "Careful," Ava said, but Grant held him steady. And then, slowly, impossibly, Ollie took a step, then another. 3 shaky, determined steps from Grant's hands toward Ava's. She dropped to her knees and caught him, laughing and crying at the same time. "Did you see that?" she said. "I saw." Grant knelt beside them, his arms around both of them. Ollie looked up at his parents, his face bright with pride. "Good job, buddy," Grant whispered. "You are so strong." They stayed like that for a long time, 3 people on a beach, holding each other as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Later that night, after Ollie was asleep, Ava and Grant sat on the porch with glasses of wine. I never thought my life would look like this, Ava said. Better or worse? Different. Harder. But better. Definitely better. Grant reached for her hand. I love you, he said. Simple. Clear. No performance. Ava looked at him. This man who had learned to change diapers and read board books, and show up even when it was inconvenient. I love you too. They sat in the dark, listening to the waves, holding hands like two people who had found their way to each other through smoke and fear, and the simple choice to keep showing up. Inside, Ollie slept peacefully, unaware that his life was built on small, brave decisions made by two people who had been strangers a year ago. The next morning, they walked the boardwalk as a family. No photographers, no headlines, just 3 silhouettes against the morning light. Ava touched the pendant at her neck. Grant carried Ollie on his shoulders, and somewhere between the cottage and the ocean, they stopped calling it co-parenting and started calling it something else. Home. Not perfect. Not without fear or uncertainty. But theirs. Together. And that was enough.